Oh my good God, ladies and gentlemen, good day to all. It's almost May of 2021, and I barely got this update vlog out in time. I didn't think I was going to do it. Literally the day I was going to record this, the power went out for a couple of hours. And then I had to spend even more time cleaning some black powder revolvers because I noticed a buildup of rust. For those who don't know, black powder is very, very corrosive. I did know that, but I thought it wouldn't rust that fast. I even oiled it up, but whatever. Black powder's black powder. Oh, dearie me, I'm going to put this stuff down and get to it in a moment. Oh, where has the general been, you might wonder? Well, I've been dealing with a death in the family. My stepfather unfortunately passed from pancreatic cancer. I know that many of you out there probably suffered familial deaths, but this is the first one for me, and I gotta say it's pretty bad. Never had to deal with the death of somebody this close to me before, and yeah, it's pretty unpleasant all around. It's one of those things when something bad happens. Initially, I'm like kind of in shock, so it's like yeah, whatever, you know. But then, you know, as time goes on, I start to process it more, and then I get to be nice and depressed. So yeah, stepfather was a really cool guy. Was not part of the family for very long, unfortunately, but he made quite the impact, to say the least. He was a really cool dude. He served in Vietnam in the 1960s, actually. Took 3 bullets to the chest. And then he didn't serve in Vietnam anymore, but he was able to survive that. Went on to be a ship captain, which I thought was kind of far-fetched at first, but then I saw the pictures. And it's like, wow. I've got like the coolest stepfather ever. And he was also an avid hunter prior to Vietnam, whereupon he took out an elk, I believe, in Alaska. I'm not sure if it was an elk or a moose. I'd have to look that up again. But I saw the picture of that too. That thing was huge. Took it out with a 1903 Springfield. That was sporterized, but one thing to remind you all of, back in the 1960s, you could get an in-marked 1903 Springfield for pennies. Okay, it was cheap. And so you could get a really high-quality rifle and sporterize it for much less money than a high-quality sporting rifle would have been. So that was just what they did back then, you know? And that's just, it's painful to us now, but, you know, when you've got a rifle that's like $10, that's just the way it goes. But he was a great many things, you know? A lot of people just kind of saw him as a biker in some respects, because he was a biker kind of dude, you know. He had, you know, this big Harley Davidson motorcycle, but he was so much more than that. He was an artist. Like, I've seen his art, and it was good. Even had this woodcut of Christopher Walken. It's like, man, him and I are on the same wavelength when it comes to movies. It's actually kind of sad. I remember the last movie him and I watched, it was Cloverfield from 2007, I want to say. And we enjoyed the movie well enough, but we kind of mocked the fact that not one of those people picked up a weapon of any sort. But it was cool. It was cool. It's been very painful the last time, and it's not going to get any better, I know. But I'm handling it as best I can. I mean, I'm reading a book now. It's the latest in the Monster Hunter International book series, and one of the characters reminds me of him. And there's some battle in a biker bar, and it's like it kind of reminded me of him. Although he never really went to biker bars all that much, but somebody dying off, you know, it's a painful thing. You know, he had a very good life. You know, he got to have my mother who loved him a lot, still does. He had a stepson who loved him a lot, and still does. So it's just one of those things. So I've been, shall we say, a bit distracted the last couple months. One thing that's really sad, share the misery, right? Was him and I were going to collaborate on a video. The black powder revolvers I mentioned, I took them out to the range a couple weeks ago, or not a couple days ago, actually. Now that I think of it, him and I were actually supposed to do a video on those. Unfortunately, he passed before we could do it. But I was out there getting some footage. Unfortunately, that range trip was a bit of a dumpster fire, mainly because I was really, really, really sad, because the last thing him and I did was go to the range to shoot black powder. So, yeah, I just didn't think to film that day. It's one of those things. Always take pictures. Always take pictures, take video, do all that. If people find it annoying, tell them to go fuck themselves. Because you never know if you're going to need it. That's why I'm glad that I took a lot of pictures. My mother took a lot of pictures. Because you never know if that's all that's going to be left. So, there will be some videos on those black powder revolvers. The revolvers in question are an 1858 Remington and an 1860 Colt Army. I had the Remington, he had the Colt, and we were going to, compare and contrast what they could do. I'm going to tell you right now, just from my personal perspective, 1858 Remington, way better than the 1860 Colt. Getting that goddamn wedge out of that bloody Colt took an act of Congress. It was most unpleasant. But I could also be over-emotional. But, yeah, so dealing with that, there's going to be a special Vietnam video. I don't want to call it a Vietnam month. It sounds kind of morbid. But where I'm going to review a Vietnam game, and I'm going to review the novel Armor, which was written by a guy who fought in Vietnam. It's a very good book. I actually like Armor quite a bit more than Starship Troopers, but then again, Starship Troopers is more of a political, kind of head in the clouds kind of thing, in my opinion, whereas Armor's much more real. It's also just, in my mind, a better story. So yeah, getting away from depression and crap like that, I guess my best advice if you have to deal with like something like that is just keep going day by day and just keep fighting. That's what I'm doing. I'm keeping myself busy and not just sitting around and staring off into space depressingly. I'm getting video work done, even if it's a bit slower now than it was. And speaking of video work, what I intend to do is give you all some filler. The filler, of course, is going to just be some playthrough, something you can throw on if you're, working on something or you're doing something tedious and you want something to listen to as background noise. I've already recorded a couple episodes. Going to be doing mods that I really want to review because for some reason in 1 month, I think 4 mods came out. I can count. 4 mods. Wolfenstein Hearts of Liberty, which is a brutal Wolfenstein mod that's really, really, really good. It's got great weapons. The level's really good. The scaling's off, but it's a lot of fun. There's Brutal Wolfenstein Uber Hero Edition. The scaling's right on. The weapons are okay. Not as good as Wolfenstein Hearts of Liberty, but still pretty damn good. As of today, Blade of Agony Episode 3 is finally out. Haven't had a chance to play that yet. And then, Duke Boss and all the rest have been working on Duke Nukem Alien Armageddon for the last couple years. They've got version 4 out. Haven't had a chance to play that, but I do intend to play it as soon as I can get the chance to do so. So I'm going to have like playthroughs of that. I'm going to have playthroughs of a playthrough of Rage 1, just to kind of explain why I think that game is terrible and not worth playing. Gonna like record, like several months of this stuff, so there's no drought of content from me. I haven't even been able to do not Let's Plays, live streams for a little while, just because I've had too much time or I've been too tired. I'll tell you, being depressed all the time really does take it out of you, that's for sure. Add to that, having to work all the time, but hey, you can't get a K98Ks, they ain't free! I'm not going to be doing the coin review show that I wanted to do earlier in the year because, yeah. Sadness and sorrow, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, I'm actually canceling 2 videos. One is AVPR. I have the footage for that, but I don't have time to do that review. And AVP JAG. Mainly because AVP JAG is going to take me so much time to do because that game is, let's just say this, it's a bit classic and a bit dense to get into. I'm actually going to continue with my review of Crystal Caves. That should come out in May. That was supposed to come out in March, but March was the month of shittiness. So we'll see if we can get that out, get 2 game reviews out in 1 month. As of this recording, I do have all the video footage for Wolfenstein 2009 recorded, all the audio, all the gameplay, and I just have to edit it all, which is going to take time, but I shall get it done. The book reviews are going to continue apace. For the month of May, we've got Star Trek TNG, Debtor's Planet, where the Ferengi are actually intelligent bad guys. I'm looking forward to getting that book review done because that is a Star Trek book that is well worth reading. Let's see what else we got here. There's still going to be some more AVP reviews this year. We're going to be taking a look at the expansion pack for AVP 2. That's coming up. Going to be taking a look at AVP Classic 2000. I already reviewed that many years ago, but I'm going to be doing a much more in-depth retrospective of that game, going through each campaign and really talking more about it than I once did. There's still a lot of cool book reviews coming out. Eventually this year, like the last book review of the year, I'm going to finally review Deathlands, which is basically Fallout 0. It's set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, a little bit like Fallout, except it doesn't have that 50s aesthetic, and it predates Fallout by, I think, like a decade. Quite well worth reading. I wouldn't recommend reading too much of that series because it really is very episodic. Let's see what else we got here. But definitely we still got... the reviews are going to continue at pace. There's not going to be a hiatus. There's not going to be a drought. There's still going to be stuff coming out. As of literally this weekend, I'm going to be back doing the live streams and continuing my live stream of Mech Assault 1. Then after that, I intend to live stream Warhammer 40k Fire Warrior, the PC version. That is a game I've wanted to talk about for some time. I've already reviewed it. It's only a 12-minute review, so I might have to re-review it sometime in the future. But, man, I mean, to me, that is one of the great missed opportunities for Games Workshop. Who wants to play as a Xenos? Like, Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard, anyone? But whatever, it's a perfectly serviceable game. It was hated at the time, but by modern standards, it's pretty bloody good. I mean, you even find it doesn't make any sense that a stupid fire warrior would be able to do what you do in the game, but whatever. And now, one thing I want to show that's really, really neat is a very, very good friend of mine gave me this as a gift. This is a custom card. It doesn't actually have a game on it. Gave me this for my birthday. I just want to really point out how awesome it is. He actually develops games himself. So take a look at Dolphin Revolution. I'm going to shill for my friend because this is pretty neat. Because I'm a big fan of Mandalorian, and what's really funny is Gina Carano got uncanceled. Now that is a way to go to distance, I'd have to say. But goddamn, that is a damn good job. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So now my little recommendations of books and games and things of that nature. The latest Monster Hunter International book, Monster Hunter Bloodlines, quite good, well worth the $15 I fucking paid for that bloody book. I gotta say, Larry Correia has definitely gotten away from some of his more political roots, in that now both government and private, both are represented equally, and I quite like that. He still has his libertarian bent, which I really like. I quite like just kind of where the whole story is going. He could have stuck with just some stupid episodic thing of, you know, monster shows up, monster hunters ride out and attack, but instead he's had this great overarching plot that I'm really looking forward to its conclusion. There has been an Aliens book released, Aliens Infiltrator. I forget the name of the writer. It was perfectly okay. It's not the best Aliens book I've ever read. In fact, I would say it was old hat as of 1997, but then again, if it's something old hat from 1997, that means it's great by today's standards. It's just your typical, you know, there's a super secret outpost, Weyland-Yutani, experimenting with a xenomorph, but they've included the black goo from Prometheus, which, I hate to say it, it pains me so, it actually worked, and made for a better story. They did it. They made the general not utterly despise everything attached to the goddamn Prometheus film. But you know what? It worked, because there's, you know, some mutated xenomorphs. There's some mutated animals. There's mutated people. And it's pretty good. It's a much more grimdark Aliens book than you might expect, but it's still pretty entertaining nonetheless. Let's see. In terms of games, I haven't had hardly any time to play anything, but in what little time I do have, I finally gave Sunset Overdrive a try. That was a game that I think everybody kind of hated on in 2014, and I think it was supposed to be a exclusive for the Xbox One, but there is a PC port. It's not the best PC port, but it works. It's an interesting open-world game. Basically, you have to fight mutated soda zombies. There's like some sort of magic soda that turns people into, well, zombie soda monsters. There's no vehicles or like planes, but you grind on everything. Oh my. Skateboard grind, not the other kind. And you basically play as this, literally a punk kind of character, a classic, like 80s punk kind of guy. And you gotta try to escape the city before all the soda monsters can kill you. The gameplay is remarkably fun. I don't know why people hated on it. I think one of the complaints was from internet reviewer Yahtzee Croshaw. I'd recommend that if you watch his stuff, watch it for the comedic factor, not necessarily for the review factor. Because there's a lot of games of his, or a lot of games that he's reviewed that were supposed to be bad that I played, that were remarkably good. So, just take it with a grain of salt. It might even take me with a grain of salt. How could you? Let's see. I also recommend taking a look at the YouTube channel Black Pants Legion. Because I finally found a gaming YouTube channel that I really, really like. Because he talks about guns and all kinds of cool crap like that. I initially was recommended to him by a fan in my MechAssault stream. As this guy is like the BattleTech expert. And he does know his BattleTech. And I gotta say, BattleTech just isn't that great to me. For me, BattleTech is just kind of, it's just kind of meh to me. None of the factions really strike me as like that entertaining. And compared to 40K, it's just got nothing on 40K. I mean, 40K, we've got this Baroque universe with some really little practical bits in it. Whereas BattleTech is nothing but just kind of generic real-life extrapolations to some extent. And I can't really get behind any of the factions or really any of the lore. I mean, the lore to me is just not interesting. And evidently due to the fact that 40K pretty much dominates, I don't guess too many other people find it that entertaining either. I don't really like to use the refuge in... I don't like the appeals to authority. It's like, oh yes, everyone sees BattleTech for what it is. But it's just, to me, BattleTech lacks that certain... pizzazz, that razzle-dazzle, so to speak, that 40K does. Because, like, in BattleTech, you've got an asshole faction that wants to conquer a planet, and then your planet faction doesn't want them to conquer it, and it's like, so? Whereas, you're the Imperial Guard, and you're trying to stave off an invasion of foul Tyranids or something, it's like, it's kind of like, take Warhammer, but imagine everything is just Imperial versus Tau, and that's it. It'd be so boring. And BattleTech just kind of is to me. Whereas 40K, there's so much more potential. Because like 40K, what do you got? You got Chaos, which is basically Space Cthulhu cultists. Then you've got the Tyranids, which is the Xenomorphs, but they can think even better. You've got Dark Eldar, which are basically rapey elves. You've got the regular elves, which, well, they don't get into that. They certainly aren't any more pleasant. So you got all these cool things. And then the Necrons, whereas BattleTech, you've got clans and houses and, I like the Mad Cat. The Mad Cat mech is great, at least in MechAssault. Now then, there is one TV show that I do recommend checking out, and that is Invincible. I did not expect to like it. I thought it was just going to be some stupid modern-day woke garbage, but it's not. Instead, it's modern-day emo comic. Now, there was a time, ladies and gentlemen, back in the mists of history, where emo comics were all the rage. You had Punisher Max, which wasn't bad. You had The Authority, Black Summer, where Superman kills George Bush because, yes, it was 2003, and, well, if you were not yet woke, that's the closest you could be. Then you had, not Indescribable, Incorruptible and Unforgivable, I think, was where you had the Plutonian who was like the evil Superman. And all the emo comics, I read them when I was emo. And so I thought, like, this is the real comics, man. Superman and Batman are lame. These are the real heroes. But there are no heroes, because we're all monsters, man. As an adult, they just kind of... For the time they came out, they weren't bad. But they all kind of suffer from the same issue of everybody's evil, man. And they kind of stick with that one note. Invincible, on the other hand, Still has some of the trappings of the emo comic, but um, it actually is a bit more intelligent. It actually has some of that. It's able to move beyond everybody's evil, man. I just hope that they're able to fix some of the tone problems, because Invincible wants to be okay. The story of Invincible. Kid finds out he's the son of Superman, and there's all sorts of shenanigans going on based on that. It's a universe that has a lot of hyper violence and then goofy crap, and I don't think you can really have both, because the goofy crap just comes off as kind of psychotic, because it's like, wait a minute, is that really funny? It's just one of those things I never really enjoyed much. I gotta say, though, the acting in the show is really good. I gotta say the pacing is also quite good. It's a worthwhile show. Just expect a lot of gross out, ultra violent stuff. I guess The Boys TV show really kicked that off, and now, something that's been old hat in comics for the last almost 20 years now is now something TV can do, and now it's like, oh, look at all the blood! Good! Or maybe I'm just being an old curmudgeon. For me, I never really liked the uber bloody, comics. Okay, let me ratchet that back. Prior to me being an emo, I didn't like the uber bloody comics. Emo phase? Oh yes, did I love the bloody comics. Why? Because that's what would really happen, man. Now it's like, oh god, what are you, 12? Come on. So that's just, I don't know. If you like the uber bloody stuff, that's personal preference when it comes to that. There's another topic I was going to bring up, but I can't remember at the moment. Oh, what was it? I think it had something to do with superheroes or comics. Something comic book related, but I can't quite recall what it was. It's the problem when you get old. Your memory just fades away. I need to upgrade from 256K to at least 1 megabyte. Well, unfortunately... Ooh, almost had it. Almost had it. It almost popped into my head. But then it immediately went away. Oh, right! Yeah, woke comics. Man, I got like suckered into looking at 2 woke comics. Quite by accident, I should say. I finally decided to look at the Flintstones comic from 2016. I'd heard about it, but I wanted to see what it was like for myself. And you know what? It was the wokest thing I had ever seen. It's like, you don't need to buy material goods, man. And we're talking like, dishwashers and clothes, washer and dryers, basic modern conveniences. And it was the preachiest thing ever. It was pretty bad. I would not recommend reading it unless you want to basically be lectured to. And speaking of being lectured at, The Shadow. Only the Shadow knows what lurks within men's minds. The Shadow film from 1992 or 3, I thought was really, really good. I quite enjoyed it. The little knife with a mouth on it, I thought was pretty cool. I really like the gadgets, because the Shadow in 1932 had like a TV that he could wear on his wrist. And the Shadow is a pretty neat character. I mean, he actually shoots criminals most of the time. And I actually got back into looking at the Shadow for a little bit by stumbling across a comic where he had to fight off an alien invasion, which was kind of neat. We'll get to another comic in a minute. There was a comic called Shadow Leviathan, I think. I thought, all right, let's take a look at this modern-day Shadow. Orange Man bad. Orange Man bad. Oh, man, it was bad, too. I mean, first off, you've got the lecturer. Then you've got, the Shadow taking down Orange Man. And by about, the 20th page, I was done. It's just, Orange Man bad, really? That's the best you got? And the premise was interesting. What would happen if the Shadow was able to survive from the 1930s to the 2000 nows? What would happen then? And then the comic starts off with him burned, and it's like he can't remember who he is. But the lecturer, of course, is like, Orange Man bad, Orange Man bad, Orange Man bad, Orange Man bad. Just no. I don't read political crap like that. Non-political crap, of course, is Aliens Marvel 2, also quite good, art good, story good, no wokeness to be found. But now moving on to the last comic bit, and that is the Army of Darkness comics. Yes, before Ash vs. Evil Dead, there were Army of Darkness comics, and I gotta say, I did not get into any of them. My big problem with Army of Darkness and Ash and all the rest is Ash was a one-note concept in a franchise that really didn't have enough life past one movie. Or maybe two. Army of Darkness and Evil Dead 1. Actually, 3 movies. Evil Dead 1, 2, and 3 are all worthwhile watches. But there's not enough meat for a franchise. And so every time you try to have Ash do something, he doesn't ever really learn from any mistakes. There's no real established anything. It's just Deadites show up, and the Deadites are way too powerful. If they can just possess anyone, why don't they just possess Ash? You know, why isn't there anybody to help out Ash and stuff like that? So it just never really resonated with me like at all. And Ash vs. Evil Dead, I watched the first 2 seasons, hated both, tried to watch season 3, and was just done. Because they never advanced the concept enough to my liking. Now, if you enjoy it, that's fine. It's just my personal preference. But I did read a comic that I do recommend checking out. Ash meets Darkman. Darkman is basically... Ooh, I forgot the name of the comic I wanted to also talk about. God damn it, there's just too much shit flying around in my brain. Ash meets Darkman. Darkman is discount Batman. Basically, Sam Raimi wanted to make Batman, couldn't get the rights, so he made Darkman. Darkman is a guy who... he is the most cable... The movie was... Darkman 1 was released theatrically, but he's basically, you know, your late-night cable TV hero. Basically, he's burned all over, and kind of like what happened to the Shadow, but this was many years before before that Shadow comic was released. Basically, he's burned all over, and they like disconnect part of his brain so he can't feel pain, and so he's got like adrenaline flowing through him, so he's got super strength. But he's really burned, and looks ugly, and he doesn't want to be with his wife, and then he like uses his uses science to like make masks, but they only last 99 minutes because plot. He got 2 direct-to-DVD or direct-to-video movies where he went from Liam Neeson to Arnold Vosloo, the Mummy, and they weren't bad movies. It's just in this comic where he meets up with Ash, it was a perfectly good story. It advanced some of the concepts. They fought against a cool villain. And you know what? Everybody didn't die at the end. I was quite happy about that. I enjoyed that. Goddamn, what was that other comic I was going to talk about? That's the problem when you're operating on little sleep and a lot of depression. So, how long have I been going? I do go on so. I can't see. 31 minutes? Damn. Well, I think that's enough for one day, ladies and gentlemen. Until we meet again, lads and lasses, I am General Otz, and I'm going to wish you good Darkman 2 and good Darkman 3. Die, Darkman, die. Or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you this great content.